How's my hair? I don't know if that noise is coming through, but there's a refrigerator over there that I'm worried might ruin the audio on this. Hey, the only thing better than listening to me is listening to me talk over my fridge, right? I've made a few videos from this room. This is my office slash man cave slash watchmaking space. And I love this room. It's awesome. It's great. My father and I worked real hard on it together. It was an ambitious project, a worthwhile one for sure. I've been trying to hold off on doing a tour around the room just because I wanted to get it done. And the thing about waiting for things to be done is that you find yourself waiting forever. At least I do quite often. So I'm going to give a quick, just once around the room here before we focus on a couple of things for the topic of the video. We will start by spinning the camera around. Let's see how this works, picking up the whole tripod here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. That's the refrigerator making all the noise. We did a pocket door. Let me tighten this up a little bit. Did a pocket door that goes to the outer stairwell here. That goes down to the machine shop slash workshop. The motion activated light up there. But this is the view coming into the room. And I guess it has most everything that I need except for some storage right now. So I think the plan is, I don't know where these shelves are going to go yet. But along here I want to have some kind of dresser or probably more like a sideboard along this wall to, put stuff on top of, to have storage to put things in. Right now I've got card stuff on this table here. There's card stuff underneath this storage here. Card stuff on these weird shelves. Do you know what these are? These are, if you took this paint off from here, in fact, maybe you can still see it behind. Michelob Ultra. This was a display rack that I got my hands on. It's neat, but it's kind of awkward footprint-wise and height-wise. So not exactly sure where it'll live yet. But anyways, temporary folding card table for this stuff. Computer parts in that bin under there that need to be somewhere else completely. Combination whiteboard, chalkboard. The trim strip I put down the middle is going to have a mount for eraser, dry erase markers, that kind of stuff. These knobs just go onto threaded studs that are attached to 2x4 studs that are behind the wall there. And if you take both of these off, this whole section is like an insulated piece of wall that comes out with weather stripping, foam weather stripping behind there. So it's good and sealed tight, it's insulated, but when you take it out, there's access behind there to storage that's overhead of like the up and over doors that are in the front part of the barn here. This is a separate building from the house. This is like a small barn. What else do we have here? We got makeshift watchmaking bench. This was an old like side table, and then I guess you could kind of call this a workbench. It was built kind of like a workbench, but looked more like a dresser. I took a couple laminated, took a couple of, 3/4 inch boards and laminated them together to make this top to go across both. So there's a lot of bench space here. And I got the little watchmaker's lathe set up over here. Parts and accessories and stuff down there. Mostly stuff for the lathe. Project drawer. I need to find some, better way of displaying watches that I have in my collection that currently function. These are just card stands that they're on right now. I'm thinking some, overarching arrangement that they perhaps hang from. Not sure yet. This is a mounting arm for like a display panel, like a touch panel that you would see in a lab or on a machine control system. It came with a little VESA mount on the end. I took that off and made this little adapter bracket so that I can mount my microscope head to it, and this is awesome. Absolutely love this. Little desk over here. Normally laptop goes over here, but it's somewhere else at the moment. Of course, nice big TV. I don't think I've shown this before. I know I have on Instagram. This is a painting by Nestor Valdez. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's freaking awesome. A little bit of stuff over here, some drawings for a project I'm working on, and the project itself so far. My brother and I, a long, long time ago, when we both had hair. 1933 Kellogg's Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, which Overstreet calls Buck Rogers' first appearance. But then if you look at an early Famous Funnies, it calls that later comic his first comic appearance. So I guess even though Overstreet lists this book, they don't consider it a comic. Which I get because there's a lot of words in it. It's my Jimmy Key personalized signed ball that I know I've mentioned before. It was a long time ago. This place right here is combination networking closet, and also where I was going to mount a small, I don't want to call it a central vac, but you know those little vacuum units they sell for garages and things? Hang this vacuum thing on the wall and it's a handy thing to vacuum out your car or whatever. I was going to put one of those in here, but I think what I'm going to do instead is just have a hose here and a port on the wall and run a line from like a more substantial central vac unit from downstairs in the workshop, so that I don't have to roll around a shop vac in the workshop anymore. It'd be nice just to have a unit mounted somewhere. So I think what this is going to turn into is just storage for the vacuum hose as well as the network stuff. This is all torn apart right now because I have problems with the fiber optic connection. These little media converters take transceiver modules that do all the actual fiber optic work. And I need a new pair of those. So right now I'm just relying on the Wi-Fi mesh from this puck connecting over to the house, which is fairly weak. When this is all working properly, it has a fiber connection to the main house and uses the backhaul feature of our Wi-Fi mesh. So it's a super fast, solid connection. Not sure what the placement of the couch is going to be long term. This is not my long-term table situation. It makes an okay coffee table for now. It actually makes a great card sorting table. But I'm looking for a low coffee table that is abnormally long with a lot of storage in it. I might have to build one, but we'll see. Been keeping my eyes peeled on Facebook Marketplace for suitable coffee table and then some sideboard or something to go over here. But not the easiest place to have a lot of like wall display because of the angled walls that are here. But I'm doing what I can with it. Great mini split setup here. These are Fujitsu units. Got one up here and then one downstairs in the workshop. I need to make a cover plate for this. It's actually what these little magnets are for, little permanent magnets that I'll mount in there to make a plate that attaches just by magnet force. So I need to make a door for this cabinet here, obviously. I need to make a top for this storage unit. Fishing and hunting stuff in there. So this will be a custom lock mechanism I have on this to secure that stuff. When it's done, it'll have a similar white top to this, and they'll kind of look like weird shelves, but they will also make it easier to get in and out of the storage space on those rare occasions I need to. Basically, you can use these like steps. But I need to make the top section for this and fit a lock mechanism into it. And this isn't as done as it looks. I need to trim the back edge to fit a little better and put some actual hinges on it. I've got all these books and things laid out here because that's one of the things I was going to talk about in this video. I think before we do that, we'll do baseball card stuff. So that, once again, the people who don't care about non-baseball card stuff can leave early. If they haven't already, which they probably have. All right, it took me a while to figure out what to talk about for baseball card stuff. But then I realized there's a bunch of stuff that I've shown on Instagram or Reddit that I haven't talked about on YouTube yet. Let me find the right box. I finished something. I finished my Canseco collection. Oh, also, now I think the last time I talked about the Canseco collection, I was hung up on the 84 Chong card. So I have that 84 Chong now, and I also decided to get the Tiffany version of his 86 Topps Traded just because it felt like that would make it more complete. So my idea here was all of Canseco's cards from 86 and before, with the exception of those handful of sets they had where all of the cards in the set were Canseco. There are a few of those. I think maybe Star made one or two. But basically everything from his minor league career up through and including his rookie year. His earliest card is from 1983. He played for the Madison Muskies. That's upside down. These aren't real hard to find. It's a cool card. These are made by Fritsch cards, and you can still find this team set new old stock from them from time to time, it seems like. I think they've got a gazillion of them in a warehouse somewhere that they're just trickling out. It's one of my favorite cards of his. This is, I'm going in chronological order here, so this is the 84 Chong that I needed so badly. And this says Sequoia Supermarkets on the back. Biggest little supermarket in town. 2000 North Central Avenue, Ceres, California. Chong Enterprises. There are apparently a lot of fakes of these. There's some pretty good info online for spotting the differences. One of the easiest ways is the how light and how contrasty the photo is. You'll see that this one's signed. I tried to find a good unsigned copy because I didn't particularly want a signed one, but it's so difficult to find these sometimes that I ran with it. I had the opportunity to get it, I got it, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. I think I'm going to say this is probably a toss-up between whether this or the 86 Big Apple is his toughest card to find from his playing days, that is, excluding like modern one-of-ones and stuff like that. There is a Mark McGuire card similar to this. In fact, I think there are a couple of them that are from later Chong sets. This is 1985 Burger King issue of the Huntsville Stars. And this one is neat because it kind of hits several different facets of my collecting personality. I like food cards. This is Burger King. And I like Canseco cards, obviously. But also, the Huntsville Stars are kind of nostalgic for me because my mother's side of the family is, from the Huntsville area, and we grew up vacationing there quite a lot, and actually live not far from there now. When he was still playing for the Stars, there was this 1985 I can't remember the official name of this card, but Southern League All-Star card set, it says on the back. And then it says MVP up there. I don't know if he was actually MVP or if they just kind of put that on the card. This is the 86 Big Apple. It is totally not licensed, I think. Probably whipped up in somebody's basement back in the day. This doesn't even have the year on it. It's not easy to find information on these. I talked about them a while back in that Stump Mangini video. There are a classification of cards known as Broder cards, and it seems to have become a term, just a general term that refers to cards that aren't licensed in any way, that effectively shouldn't have been made. And they kind of came from these sets that have photos by Rob Broder. And this set here, I believe this is from 86. Canseco had two cards in this set. The cards 2 and 9. Apparently it was a 50 card set. Interesting rounded corners, kind of like the Mother's cards. And now we're into the more mainstream stuff. So of course, got to have the 86 Donruss rated rookie. He's got two other 86 Donruss cards that you may or may not be aware of, but there's the 86 Donruss Highlights set, and there's also the 86 Donruss The Rookies set. I always liked the kind of teal color on the Rookies set in 86. He's got a bunch of 86 Fleer cards. There's the one that most people know that is a double card with Eric Plunk. There's also an 86 Fleer mini set where he's just by himself, which is cool. And there is, of course, the 86 Fleer update where he's also just by himself. I think this photo on the full-size update card would have been cool. I was able to find 3 other Fleer sets from 86 that he was in. There's the 86 Baseball's Best. I don't know how many of these are stickers. I don't think this one's a sticker. It's kind of thicker stock, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was, I guess. But there's also the 86 Fleer League Leaders. And then the 86 Fleer Star sticker. This is definitely a sticker. That's a neat looking one. I kind of like this one. This is the Mother's Cookies one that I mentioned earlier, 1986 Mother's Cookies. And I think it's really neat how these have the blank line for the player's signature at the bottom. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to find one of these signed someday or have it get signed. It'd be kind of cool. There's a Sportflix from 86. No, these probably are going to show up terribly on camera. I don't know how much of the action transition. I guess you can see it a little bit. And of course, the 86 Topps Traded. I like this one very much. And this is the Tiffany version that I got. So regular has the asterisks in the corner, whereas the Tiffany does not. And I think for the non-traded sets, it's actually the opposite of that, confusingly. So that's all of his stuff through 86 that I'm aware of. I know there's some stuff out there that they want you to believe it's a card from 85 that's in the 85 Topps design and stuff like that. They're not. Those are more modern things. But if I learn of any more that are legitimately from 86 or before, then they will go on my radar. To go along with it, just because I feel like it has to, is the 87 Topps, of course. Maybe I have to get the Tiffany of this too. We'll see. I also wanted a pair of relic cards, a jersey relic and a bat relic. And I wanted them to be, like from older sets where they were more apt to be actually game used. So this is Upper Deck Legends jersey relic. And I'm older than dirt, so I can't tell you what year this is from by the fine print on the back. And this is a Stadium Club World Champions relic set. It's a bat relic. My other criteria for the relic cards is that they had to be in his A's uniform on the picture, because I found quite a few where he was with different teams. And then an autograph card made sense to have with it. I put this one in the collection before I had that 84 Chong. This is actually one I pulled from a pack back in 2019. This is the 2019 84 Topps design, but it's the 150th anniversary parallel that is numbered, and this one is number 2 out of 150. I was pretty stoked with that pull. So I consider the Canseco collection, until I decide to change it up for some reason, to be done. Let me just unreverse these real quick, get them put back away. I'm close on so many other little collections, but that one is actually done, and it feels pretty good. Maybe next time we'll talk about the Eddie Alvarez rainbow I'm working on. That is also very close to done. All right, book nerd stuff. I have books. I wouldn't say I collect books. Not comic books. I mean, just, open them and there's pages with words kind of books. But for the most part, not novels. They tend to be books that have a purpose other than just entertainment. So if you want any sort of insight into what makes me tick, no pun intended, let's go back over to this pile of books here. So, these are mostly just the ones that I felt like I had something to say about. And maybe we should start with one of my first loves. I'm told that the very first thing I ever drew, as soon as I could pick up a thing and draw with it, was a car. I loved cars my whole life, as long as I can remember, ever since I knew what a car was. I was a little kid, we'd be driving down the road, and I would tell my dad what cars were all around us. I could name the make and the model. Don't know what it is. Fascinated with cars, love them, love to drive them, always liked tinkering on them. And I got real into water-cooled Volkswagens, starting with the Rabbits and the Jettas, Scirocco's, Corrados, and so on. And real early on, I remember going through this copy of Poor Richards. Actually, it was my father's copy. It wasn't this copy. And this is, I don't even know the right word. This is such an even split between art and like useful technical information function. This entire book is soup to nuts VW Rabbits, what they call the Mark I Golf everywhere else, except for the United States, or North America, I guess I should say. But it's all got this crazy, gorgeous, hand-done illustration. I mean, we're just going to take a tour through this for a moment. You know, where you would have, you know, photos of disassembly and assembly and exploded view diagrams of parts in something like Chilton's or Haynes, or in the case of VWs, the older ones at least, you wanted the Bentley manuals. Very useful, but it's all just boring photos, very helpful photos. But imagine combining that with all of this gorgeous artwork and very, what's the right word? It's very well written. It's interesting to read because he sprinkles in a lot of humor, a lot of anecdotes, and sometimes that also coincides with some interesting art. For example, this is how you build your sandwich right here. Sandwich exploded view. This book is just in a class by itself. It's crazy that it even exists. I love that it exists. And as much as I would love to have an old Rabbit again someday, fixed up real nice, I probably never will. But I'm always going to hang on to that book. I got my own copy when I moved out of my parents' house because I liked it so much. One of my earlier interests, not as early as the cars, was computers. I guess is what got me into the career I'm in. And I had a bunch of like old Intel 8085 development board stuff. I'm just realizing I don't like this shadow situation that we got going on here. Maybe if I do this. So a couple of the development boards with various peripherals and accessories and things and a whole bunch of documentation. I got rid of most of that stuff because I just was never going to use it, taking up space, and I don't want to I don't want an antique computer collection. That's just not a thing that I need in the house at all. But this is some real interesting marketing stuff that I hung on to from one of the, it's actually the 8048. So just a random neat thing for a computer nerd to have around. I have a little bit of a lathe problem. I wasn't going to do this, but you know what? We're going to do it. We're going to walk this way. Down the stairs. You're going to see a big mess. And I kind of apologize for that, but I'm not really sorry, I guess. This is my daily driver, if you will. It's an old Rivet. Looks like a 608. It's really an 8-inch precision. Predates the 608 by a little bit. I think 1912 is when the ways on this were scraped, according to the marks on the back of the nameplate there. Got a Horth over there with a wacky but wonderful milling attachment on it. Got this one here that's set up for, or will be set up for, more clockmaking type work. Got a crazy rare grinding attachment for it. This is something else, ignore that. This is a beauty. This is another Horth. That's an awesome shape. This one I typically run with a bed turret on it, which probably is under here. It's in one of these bins around here somewhere. But the bed turret is awesome for repetitive work. So if I need to make a bunch of the same part, super handy for that. Right now I've got just the regular slide rest on it. And down here, a couple other beds, headstocks, tailstocks, slides, headstock. Another bed down here. Mostly spare parts over here. So if you combine that with the little watchmaker's lathe I have here, I've got a little bit of a lathe problem, but if you ask me, it's a good problem to have. The Horth machines, and the Rivet, they're pretty special because they were they're old. They were very, very expensive when new, so a pretty limited number of them were made, and they're made for more so laboratories, certain government facilities, metrology labs. The neat thing about the Horth stuff, Horth and Rivet were related by marriage, I guess, and their workshops, for a period of time at least, were literally right down the street from one another, and I gather they shared certain ideas. The Horths and the Rivets were the only machines you could get with that crazy eccentric tool post that you probably didn't notice was on my Rivet. This is some documentation that I have that goes along with some of the actual machines that I have. So, Mr. Earl Higgins Jr. ordered one of the lathes that I have down there. And this is a copy of catalog number 12 that they sent to him with the business card of, I guess, whoever sold him the machine. But I have more of a beater copy of catalog number 12 here. And it's interesting that they're physically different. Not only the color, but this one's embossed and this one's plain. But for machine tool nuts like me, this stuff is awesome to flip through. I have nearly every accessory that's mentioned in this book in various states of restoration and operation. It's a slotting attachment that you may have noticed when we were downstairs a moment ago. But yeah, love this stuff like crazy. This should all be the same actual info inside. It's just a different cover they put on this one. I have electronic copies of some of their other catalogs. I don't think that all of them have been accounted for yet. Much like the Rivet documentation, much of it has been lost, unfortunately. So what got me into machining and that sort of nonsense was my watchmaking hobby. So a lot of the stuff I have is centered around watchmaking, and I was very much inspired by Mr. George Daniels. And even if you're not specifically into watches or watchmaking, if you enjoy like maybe rags to riches isn't the right term, but rising above your circumstances, this is a great read. Daniels grew up with abusive parents, just in abject poverty, abused, neglected, and he rose to become one of the greatest watchmakers that's ever walked on the planet. An all-time great for sure. And he is the one that invented the coaxial escapement that they use in Omega watches currently. He worked with them for them to eventually be able to mass produce it, but he used it in his own watches for a good while. The version that Omega uses, they insist on oiling, which Daniels always hated. The whole point of that escapement was that it didn't need any oil. One of his great contributions to the craft was this book. And this is absolutely not a great read unless you're a hardcore watch nerd. This is the Bible on building your own chronometer grade watch completely from scratch. Every aspect of it. It's amazing. This is my only copy, but it's also my reference copy. I flip through this, refer to it, and use it. Still very much in the process of learning after a whole bunch of years. It's fascinating stuff to me. A little bit of additional information. This is obviously specifically about cutting wheels and pinions. Some of these books are quite difficult to find. I don't believe that that one especially is. This one is. It's an interchange list for balanced staffs. And it's more of a flyer, but this is, mind-numbing information that is incredibly valuable at times. And here's a weird one in that I don't think that there's a physical copy of it that was ever produced, with the exception of ones like this where somebody just downloaded and then printed it. This came from Project Gutenberg, anonymous author, and this really is an incredible set of information about timekeeping escapements. Again, complete yawn fest to anyone who's not like me, which is most people. This, in spite of the name, it's not that The Art of Breguet. Daniels and Clutton, I believe it was Clutton, produced a book called The Art of Breguet, where they meticulously documented the work of Abraham Louis Breguet. This is not that. This is one that I believe it was Sotheby's. No, Habsburg. One of their auction sales. This was this was the catalog for the auction. It's like a full hardcover book. But this has gorgeous plates of some of the watches, and the stories behind all of them. Is the original bid sheet that's still in here. List of Breguet retailers. I'm not exactly sure when this is from. My guess is 80s. But this is a cool find, since I may never own an actual copy of The Art of Breguet. That's a pretty good stand-in for it. This is the prettiest coffee table book I've ever seen in my life. This is again about Daniel's work. This is by Michael Clarizo. Wonderful guy, very well spoken, very knowledgeable. And as soon as I found out he was doing this, I was all in and pre-ordered. This is a catalog of Daniel's work. You know, this is very much like The Art of Breguet, except it's Daniel's. Some about his life in here too, which is nice. But just, his work is incredible. When you look through these look like these are computer renderings. I don't think he ever touched a computer in his life. These are all photos. That's actual metal. I mean, the level of finishing and detail that went into his work is, well, it's watchmaker grade. That's what watchmakers are known for. But seeing such large, well-lit, well-composed photos, I find it mesmerizing. So this is a great book just to flip through. Even if you don't feel like learning anything, just looking at the pictures is wild. A couple of workshop books. I'm missing one of these. I think there are 3 volumes. This must be volume 1 here. Perhaps they didn't know there was going to be volumes 2 and 3. The Shop Wisdom of Rudy Kohoupt. A bit of a legend in the home shop machining community. Great info in these, and these are not easy to find. In fact, this copy came from the editor of the Home Shop Machinist magazine. He very graciously sent me because we were having a hard time tracking down any volume other than the first one. I would like to get the second volume someday. This is very interesting reading, again, for weirdos like me. This one isn't technically mine. I need to send this back to the owner. Just a neat little book about model engineering machines and their uses. Practical Benchwork for Horologists is indeed a wonderful guide for people wanting to do precision bench work. There's another one that's fairly difficult to find that I just lucked right into a particularly beautiful, well-preserved copy. One of your first books you should have if you're getting into watch repair is Freed's Watch Repairer's Manual. So this book is everywhere, as it should be. This one's neat because it came from my uncle and grandparents' library. Just kind of rescued it from there. I would like to get into more of the jewelry making side of things perhaps someday, so that's an interesting little doodad. This is not something I've needed a whole lot yet, but when I get deep into chronographs, or tourbillons, or perpetual calendars, I'm expecting that'll be pretty useful. Practical Watch Repairing, another great reference guide for someone getting into the hobby. It's right up there with the Freed book, in my opinion. This is the Watch and Clockmaker's Handbook, which I was unfamiliar with, but this was sent to me. And there's a lot of neat stuff in there. Some of it redundant, some of it not so much. This thing needs to go in an ozone chamber. This thing is musty as all get out. Jewelry Engraver's Manual, again. Jewelry making stuff is kind of interesting to me. These two books have some personal significance. I keep this old accountant's handbook around because it was my great uncle's copy. My great uncle, who I was named after. He died long before I was born, too young, and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but let's just call it an accident. His car exploded when he was in it, with some other stuff in it that I think certain people didn't want to have exist anymore. This is The Royal Road to Romance. It is a copy of a book that came from my grandmother's library. And she always annotated her books. She annotated everything, but she made a little mark in here that this was passed on to me, and when it was passed on, and I think this was a graduation present, if I remember correctly. Lots of sentimental value there. Comics and Sequential Art by the great Will Eisner. The same Will Eisner who drew that book. Used to be very much into art and drawing, more on the comic side of things for the most part, although I dabbled in a lot of other areas. Still really like this book, even though I probably don't have a great use for it anymore. Another one of those things that, gift from my mother, I think it was. My neighbor recently gave me this, The Armchair Book of Baseball. I have not sat down and really gone through it yet, but it seems to be a lot of anecdotal type stuff. If there's anything especially interesting in there, then we'll have to dust off that book for a future video and maybe talk about some of the stuff. I don't want this to turn into like a book reading channel or anything, but if there's cool stories, we can talk about them. Magazines, Home Shop Machinist, which I've had a subscription to for years. So as you can see, big time nerd fest. I get interested in things of a technical nature, especially if they're somehow mechanical, which seems like it would be sort of odd for a computer or software guy. Never got so much into electronics. It's like computing and then hardware and mechanics and nothing in between. I can't explain it. It's the way I am. That and collecting. I've always been a collector. I have to make an effort to not collect too much. And I just listened to those words come out of my mouth after all of the stuff that I just showed you. And this is me not collecting too much. Yeah. I guess it's fortunate that by the time I reached a point in life where I could afford much in the way of collectibles, I had the restraint and self-control to not go as crazy as I would have when I was younger with a lot of this stuff. My in-laws would tell you a story about me filling up their barn with a dozen or so old Volkswagens, while my then future mother-in-law was out of the country for a while. And she came home to a barn filled up with VWs and VW parts. Yeah. I'm a collector in that I like to preserve history, but I also have that kind of hoarding instinct where if I think something could be useful, I want to hang on to it. If it can be reused, fixed, whatever. I certainly can throw stuff away when I need to, but I will hang on to stuff too. If I have a place to put it, I will keep stuff. I don't buy new cars. I buy used ones these days. We're buying used cars that still aren't all that old, in my opinion. Just going back, anytime I've owned a car, I've had like shelving full of spare parts for it. My machine tools downstairs, the mill, the lathes, bins full of spare parts and stuff that could be useful. That blue bin under the table over there, full of computer parts, could be useful someday. So there's my space and a little bit about my interests. What do you think? Total snooze fest or total nerd fest? Let me know in the comments.